wearing lipstick. So this must be podcast day. Hello and welcome to the Flame and Fiber podcast. My name is Barbara. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Diva S. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the new subscribers, and thank you so much for coming back, those of you who've been here before. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the lovely comments and messages. I cannot tell you how important that is to me and how much I appreciate it. I do this to be part of the community, and I really do love to hear from you, so thank you so much. Getting new subscribers all the time. I always get new subscribers after Leslie does a podcast. Leslie of the Not Quite Enough Yarn and I, Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, and I are doing a year-long craft from your stash make-along, and so when she does a podcast, people find me, and I appreciate that. I'll talk about our make-along more later, but she's lovely. And so welcome. If you found me through Leslie, welcome. I have over 900 subscribers now. If it ever some miracle happens and I get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm definitely going to have a giveaway. So just putting it out there into the universe. I have a new cup today. My daughter came to visit. I bought this one because it's got this cool design on it. It looks like architectural drawings. It's not a very elegant mug, and it's quite heavy. But I just was so enamored with the way it was done. I bought it from a student. My daughter and her significant other and her little puppy came to visit us this week. She just left yesterday. And my sister came to visit my parents, and she usually flies into Philadelphia, and I pick her up, and then we drive to my parents together, and that gives us some time together, and I stay a day or two, and then I come home. So it gives me a chance to see my sister. She lives in Boise. My sister's name is Christy, and my daughter's name is Christy. I did not name my daughter after my sister exactly. I named my daughter Christy for exactly the same reason that my mother named her first daughter Christy, which is we both wished we'd been named Christy. But I was the second daughter, and the name had already been taken. So the Christies and I were in State College, where Penn State is. My parents both taught at Penn State. And this weekend is the Central Pennsylvania Festival of the Arts, which is now a very big deal. It's over 50 years old now. It started when I was a kid, when I lived in State College as a kid. But I remember when it first started, they had booths. There were kids with booths in the Arts Festival selling painted rocks back in the day. So this was a long time ago. Now it's a whole big deal. It's a juried show. It's got hundreds of booths and gorgeous stuff. I happened to get this from the student. There was a student booth that had the work of several students. And I just fell in love with this the outside of the design. The shape of the mug, it's a little heavy and clunky. But I was just so taken by this. She said she got satellite images of the oil fields around where she lived and then did all this technical stuff to it, which she explained to me, and I don't remember. I don't need a mug, but I just loved it, and I like to support young artists. Well, the thing I like about the Arts Festival is that you're buying beautiful things, or you're seeing beautiful things, and you're talking to the person who made them, which, as a maker myself, I really, really like. So that was fun. And I got some jewelry, and I got a glass vase for our new house whenever we have a new house. And if I was going to say, and if I remember, I'll put a picture here, but not here. I won't put it here. I'll put it at the end. So we've had company, which has informed my making, so I'll talk about that later. Dennis's finger is doing much better. As I said in my last podcast, he basically tore all the meat off the end of his finger and had to have 12 stitches. He had his stitches out. This is Sunday, July 14th at 10 o'clock in the morning, so I'm hoping that the light will be better. And he got his stitches out on Monday. So he got his stitches out on Monday. So it's almost a week now. And it's feeling better. He can wash the dishes. He uses a rubber glove, but he often uses a rubber glove anyway, like a surgical glove, to do stuff because he doesn't like to get his hands messy, which is interesting for a cook. He's a cook. By his main hobby is cooking. He was a professional cook at one point in his life, and let me tell you, if you're not a cook, marry a cook. I'm an eater, and I love being married to a cook, let me tell you. Although he was a professional cook for a while in his life, which means that he makes food service quantities of everything. So when he makes something, we have it to eat for a long time, although it's not, a lot of things can go in the freezer. But, I mean, when he makes salad, it goes in bags, and we have salad for a week. Which is nice, because if you make your salad every night, you don't make it half the time. I mean, I don't. Of course I don't make whatever. He's feeling much better. He's feeling like his fingers, he thinks it's going to always be ugly, but it'll be functional. I did something when I made my coffee today. This is my second cup. Did I say that already? And I seem to have coffee grounds in my coffee. Ugh. So, I drew the prizes for the knit-along last week, and I heard from both people. And Beverly, your package is not out yet, so I hope you haven't been looking for it. I will message you when I send it. I am hoping to get into the studio and make you some stitch markers. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I've got company. But as I mentioned, Leslie of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, I love her podcast. I am so excited when the last weekend of the month comes, because her podcast is once a month. She records a little bit during the month and then puts it all together for one podcast per month, which I think is a great idea. I'm not organized enough, I don't think, to keep track of things and whatever, but I really love her podcast, and she's a lovely woman. I had the pleasure of actually spending an afternoon with her when we were visiting England for a short period of time last October, and she's just as lovely in person or more as she is on her podcast. So I highly recommend her podcast. I'm sure you already watch her. Anyway, she's in her second yarn no buy year. And so I decided to join her this year. So I have not bought any yarn since October. And so I'm, shopping in my stash, and my stash is going down. The prizes that I'm sending people are from my stash. I'm not buying yarn even for prizes. And, but somehow Leslie ends up with more yarn at the end of the year than she starts with. Well, for one thing, her husband buys her yarn when he travels. Dennis does not buy me yarn. And if we're together and I said, oh, that's lovely, he would never buy it for me. And I think that, that would be just like me buying it. He would never buy me yarn. Anyway, so somehow she ends up with more yarn at the end of the year. She'll probably have a no-buy year next year, too, because she has more yarn than she started with. I mean, her goal is to, fit into 2 cupboards instead of 3. My goal is to just not spend so much money on yarn. I love my yarn, but I have a really nice stash. And I can make beautiful things for a long time using the stash that I have. So, we are doing a craft from your stash make-along. Stash KAL 2019. I'll put it under here for Instagram and Ravelry. And it's very, very easy rules. You had to have owned the fiber or the yarn in 2018, and you had to have started the project in 2019. Those are the rules. That's it. It can be small things, doesn't matter. But you know, there's a finished objects thread in my Ravelry group, and there's a chatter thread, and I think the rules are in the chatter thread. You know, so there are other rules. You know, if you have to buy yarn, you know, whatever. I'm not a heavy rules enforcer. You know, the two rules I care about most are you own most of the yarn in the project at the end of 2018 and you started it in 2019. That's all I'm looking for. So every quarter I pick a yarn prize from the finished objects, someone to win a yarn prize, and I pick a pattern prize for someone to win from the chatter thread, and Leslie's doing that too. She has an additional twist. An additional prize she's going to give at the end of the year, which will be for things that are made with more than one yarn, you know, because that's how she works. When she runs out of yarn, she just makes a color block or something. Yeah. So I don't think, I don't have that, but I will have a grand prize at the end of the year. But being you know, shopping from your stash is kind of a prize in itself, because we have such beautiful yarn and fiber. And we see that, you know, I'm talking like it's you, it's me. You know, the new shiny thing. I mean, I had to unfollow a bunch of dyers on Instagram, to tell you the truth. Because, you know, I have bought a couple things, not this year, because, oh, on Instagram I had, you know, I gotta have that. So, you know, it doesn't help my year to follow too many dyers. I have not unfollowed very many dyers, let me tell you. I'm still tempted. But I'm not as tempted as I thought I would be. I mean, there are a couple of yarns I've seen that I thought, oh, I'd really like to, you know, knit a sweater out of that. That Nightshade yarn that Harrisville Designs is making, which with really dark natural wool and then having other colors spun into it, and the different shades are just the subtle other colors. That looks lovely, and I think when I'm off my no-buy year, I might buy myself a sweater's quantity of that. But to tell you the truth, I've been, you know, the longer I'm not buying, the less I'm missing it. So that's fun. I don't know how I'm going to do when I go to Nag's Head in October, and I'm going to Rhinebeck. I don't know how I'm going to do at Rhinebeck. I may have to give myself, well, I haven't bought any yarn since October, so that'll be a whole year. My plan is to not buy yarn in Rhinebeck, but there are plenty of things you can, you know, enjoy at Rhinebeck without actually buying the yarn. You know, and I don't think there's anybody at Rhinebeck that doesn't sell online. So I can just make notes and take pictures, and, you know, and if I have to contact them to try to get the yarn that I want, it won't be a spur of the moment purchase, which is a good thing. So I'm going to Rhinebeck. My first time at an Airbnb. We'll see how we do with this. I've never done that before. Yeah, and you know, Knitting Addiction is in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, which could be a problem. But I was in a yarn shop with my daughter this weekend, Thursday. It was a combination yarn shop, quilting shop, and I was there for embroidery floss, because I'm doing cross stitch now. And I didn't even walk into the yarn section. I just thought that wouldn't be a good idea. So anyway, so please join us. It's a lot of fun, and you can follow the hashtag #StashKal2019 on Instagram and see a bunch of beautiful stuff in the process of being made in the sun. If I start sweating, I apologize. But I think the light's going to be okay for you. So I have been knitting. Last time I talked, I was still doing, I'll move my chair over here so I was working on my Ravelry tee. I was still in the color work. And I'll be quite honest with you, after I finished my podcast last time, I was tired of hearing myself whine about this color work. It turns out color work is a little bit like childbirth. It's really unpleasant while it's happening, but boy, you love what you get at the end. So right after my podcast, I decided to just put on my big girl panties and finish my color work. So I did. And then I could move forward. Oh, my needle's all tangled funny. Uh-oh. So here we are. I finished my color. All that fussing and then it still turned up. I finished my color work. And I don't know if this was showing very well. And, well, I'll show you the other side, because then I started on the body and I got all the way up to where the sleeve split, and I finished the back. So the back is on another needle. Oh, it's all wrinkly, look at that. So I finished the color work. I've gotten all the way up to the back, and I'm just ready to start knitting the front. This is where I was when last we spoke. So I finished that color work. It turned out really nice. I love how this work looks. I do. I love how it looks. It really is a lot like I hated while I was doing it most of the time, although I didn't hate it as much at the end as I did at the beginning. So maybe I just got better at it. The other thing I did was I stopped using that gizmo on my left hand to hold both the threads, and I just used the main color in my left hand, and I picked up the other color and just threw it when I needed the other color, rather than trying to get too fancy. So I'm really happy with how it's looking. And so I have to do the front, and then it goes into short rows going up the back. Now I don't imagine it's short rows in the front, so it's probably less knitting, but it's got a little bit of a 1x1 rib going on at the top. And then I will be done. This has, well, there's a little bit to do on the sleeve, but so this is the Ravelry tee by Hunter. And so it has like a drop shoulder, and then there is a little bit of knitting on the sleeve to get the color. I'm going to use the apricot color inside my sleeve here, and not the darker color. And it's got a little bit of a boat neck, so it's going to just go up high, I guess, and then connect at the shoulders. But Hunter, Ravelry. And I hope to have this finished for the next podcast. But I just got tired of hearing myself whine about that stupid color work, so I just did it. And now, of course, I'm in love with it. Well, I've always loved how it looked. But now, you know, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe I should start another colorwork sweater when I'm done with this. Yeah, I know. And you're sitting there like, please don't. I don't want to hear you whine about colorwork anymore. I'll try not to whine. Okay. Getting ready to edit my podcast, and I realized I didn't even talk about the yarn on my sweater. So I got the neighbors mowing the lawn. I got a whole different sort of, but it'll be fine. So, my Ravelry tee by Hunter. This gorgeous yarn. This is naturally dyed yarns, and I talked about how I screwed up the yarn when I was trying to set the colors, but I still ended up with beautiful colors, and I'm very happy with the yarn. Now this yarn is all naturally dyed. Well, it's all dyed with natural dyes. I bought it from a lovely booth at Maryland Sheep and Wool several years ago. But the people who make these yarns, I have their phone number there if you want to call them. We have a winter number and a summer number. But they do not sell online. So this is one of the yarns that I bought. Now, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure which color this is. But they have a wonderful booth. Yeah, hand wash in warm water with mild soap. Don't do what I did, which was try to set it with citric acid, and it just drained all the beautiful color out. But anyway, this one of them is 65% superwash merino and 35% bamboo, and it's dyed with the cochineal and the indigo, which is why I think that's the main yarn here. The main color of the body. And so Suzanne there are two women. One is Juanita Breidenbach, and the other one is Suzanne Banghart. So two of these are the same yarn, 65% superwash merino, 35% bamboo, indigo, and cochineal. So that's the dark, which is the brown, and the body of the sweater. Now the other, the apricot color is made with madder, and it is on a different base. Oh no, it's the same base. So they're all 65% superwash and 35% bamboo. But the apricot color was dyed by Juanita, and the other two colors were dyed by Suzanne. And these two women have this wonderful booth in at Maryland Sheep and Wool, and I haven't seen them anywhere else. There is an email address on this, which if I do notes this time, which I didn't last time, will put on my notes. So anyway, I thought it might be nice to at least mention the gorgeous yarns that I'm using. And I bought a lot of yarn from these ladies. They're the first place I go when I go to Maryland Sheep and Wool. And so I will be making other sweaters with this. I have a lot more of this apricot color. I was really drawn to it, and some variegated versions of that apricot. And so you will be seeing that again in the future. I do have that. And this is the color of the body, which I'm also enjoying. The brown is not so good, and you can't buy it looking like that because I ruined a burgundy color to turn it into that brown. So these are the beautiful colors, so I thought I should at least talk about the colors of the yarn. So anyway, so back to the past me. That is the only knitting I've done since my last podcast. I didn't work on Sammy's sweater at all, and I didn't work on my Cityscape tank. But the Tour de France started, which means Tour de Fleece started. Now, you haven't seen me, I mean, people who started watching me in January have never seen my spinning. I do spin. I spin. I used to spin, and now I'm spinning again because I got the electric eel spinning wheel in November, and I actually spun some yarn, one skein of yarn when I got that spinning wheel, and I haven't done anything else with it. I had another braid ready to go, and then I didn't do anything with it. I stopped spinning basically when we got Pearl. Before we got Pearl, my dog Pearl, we have two dogs. Pearl is 2 years old, a German Shepherd. She was the rascaliest puppy ever. And I had been spinning in my living room. I moved the spinning wheel up to my craft room, which is a complete disaster. I'm not even going to talk about it, where I couldn't spin. And so I wasn't really spinning. I haven't really been spinning for the last 2 years. I was in the middle of plying yarn, and there's still that yarn to ply, but I didn't ply that yarn for Tour de Fleece. I took out the braid that, I just did the braid that I had pulled out to do next back in November. And I'll put a picture here of what the fiber looked like. There's still I have some yarn here, but it's slightly wet still. This is what I'm calling clown barf. This is fiber. This fiber I dyed in a dye class, a fiber dyeing class with Felicia Lowe of Sweet Georgia, who's like a dyeing expert, at Vogue Knitting Live, New York 2017. So that was 2.5 years ago. And I really enjoyed the class, but my problem with spinning and fiber is I really can't look at a dyed fiber and have an idea of what that yarn is going to look like. So I had no idea what it was going to look like. It looks better. I guess I'm getting used to it. When I was first done with it, I thought, oh my gosh, this looks like clown barf. But I soaked it, and you know. But this is merino and bamboo. And bamboo doesn't take the dye great. So I don't know if you can see. Maybe if I put this on now. The sun is behind me on the trees. Anyway, the bamboo doesn't take the dye as well, and it comes out looking a little shiny. Anyway, it's kind of growing on me. I got 160 yards. So this is like a worsted weight. Between a TK and a worsted weight yarn. So this will have to be a hat or something with that bamboo. I don't know what this will be. Maybe I'll make it a prize and foist it off on one of you guys. I won't. But anyway, it's not terrible. But this is the first spinning I've done in 2 years, except for one skein. And it's only the second time I've used that wheel. So while I still wasn't feeling confident in my spinning, I got another, but I wanted to try like a different fiber. So I went in my stash, and I have a huge fiber stash, huge. And I got this out. This is BFL Silk from Into the World. This was a club color. I have had several fiber clubs. This is a club color from 2016 called 11s in the Shire. And I picked it because I didn't love the colors, and I thought I wouldn't care about it, and so I'm going to practice on this yarn. And I don't love the colors. It's not terrible. So this is 75% BFL, 25% silk. And I'm going to see if I can felt this. Probably can't with that much silk in it. I don't know, but I'm going to try. Because I was thinking these would be cute felted slippers. And I want to make myself some felted slippers at some point. So, but this is, you know, I didn't do a great job on it, but I didn't do a terrible. There's a bad spot. Let me show you a good spot. There aren't any good spots. So this is a DK. Wait, I cannot spin. I've never spun something that ended up a fingering weight. This is a 2-ply. I only have 3 bobbins on that spinning wheel, the electric eel. And so I did a 2-ply, and then I plied it together. Now, Pearl is no longer nearly as rascally as she was when I stopped spinning with I have a Ashford traditional spinning wheel. And it's very possible that I can bring it back downstairs now, even though we have Maze, who is this 4-month-old Newfoundland Poodle mix, who's adorable, but she's not out here. Those guys are inside laying on their air conditioning grates. But Dennis thinks that I can probably have my wheel downstairs and do some spinning too. So I think I'm going to oil up that wheel and apply the rest of the yarn that was, I had to take it off. I took it off the wheel even though I hadn't finished plying the whole thing because I needed the Lazy Kate to ply these yarns. So I took what I had done off, and so this was plied 2 years ago. I just took it off the wheel. And this is a combination, I think it's Romney and something else. Like it's a 2-ply. 1 ply is like a Romney and the other one is something else. I'm not sure. I will have to go back and look at my notes. But in the spirit of full disclosure, and you know, it's always good to learn things from podcasts. And you can learn a lot from my podcast because I keep doing these stupid things and just, you know, I mean, I would rather you learn from my podcast because look, this is a great way to do something because it turns out so good. But I don't know how much of that you get on this podcast, but you can learn some valuable lessons on my podcast if you just don't do what I do. So here's some beautiful yarn. Turned out really good. My plan for this is I had also spun some real fuchsia yarn and I was going to make a breathing space. And I just set the color on that fuchsia yarn recently. And I was going to finish this up and I was going to stripe this with fuchsia. Nice. So I soaked it and, you know, hung it. And as it was going in the water, I thought to myself, gee, I wonder if putting colored yarns to tie this with is such a good idea. Blunk, and into the water it went. The answer to that question is no, it's a terrible idea. Because now I have pink from this little piece of scrap yarn that I had laying around. Purple. And blue. Can you see that? My side's better because I got sun, but so there are at least two spots where I have got, but this is the worst because this is where the pink was, and of course pink is going to come out. Can you see that? So I have all these colors in my yarn. I just noticed that this morning. I almost didn't tell you. So I will untie this yarn, and I don't even know what I can do. I'll soak it again and see, you know, see if. But since I'm going to be striping it with fuchsia on a breathing space, maybe it won't matter. It's like every sweater I make is my object lesson for not doing something stupid. And so here's another one. So when you tie off your yarn, make sure you're using color fast yarn to do it. This would be why most indie dyers use the same yarn as, you know, as your yarn, you know, like if you're buying in a color, the ties are in that exact same color. This would explain that because this would make sense. Don't do what I do. Anyway, that was kind of heartbreaking this morning when I saw that pink. It's only a little bit of pink. It's going to be striped with pink. Nobody will know but me. But I think it's like too extensive to cut it out when I'm knitting it, and that would be a pain in the neck. Although I'd be shocked if that yarn is superwash, so it might spit splice. Anyway. So I started doing Tour de Fleece, and I did the first 3 or 4 days, and then my daughter came and we were traveling, and I haven't done it yet. But maybe, hopefully today I'll get back to some spinning. This is probably their day off, but I don't care. And I will try, and I will get my Ashford out and try to do that. I think the electric is a little weird because it keeps going even when your mind says, oh, maybe I should slow down, you know? Where when your mind says, oh, I should slow down, your foot slows down sometimes. Anyway, so you have to stomp on the thing. I need to get better at that. And I also need to get more bobbins. I don't have enough bobbins. I only have 3 bobbins for that. I've actually been out on the website a couple times and I don't see like an easy way to just order bobbins, but I have to do some more research. So the sad thing is I can't get the Tour de France on my TV. We downsized our TV packages a while ago because we don't watch a lot of TV, and you know, and whatever we have left, we don't get NBC Sports Network, which is what it's being shown on in the United States. Now I could buy it and, you know, as a special thing for $60 and have it stream on my machines, but I am not going to do that. So the first day I found one of the days of the 2018 Tour de Fleece, and you know, on YouTube, the full thing, and I watched that. But it was a little strange and not nearly as satisfying. But I wasn't spinning last year, so I didn't pay any attention to Tour de France or Tour de Fleece. So anyway, so now I've been doing this cross stitch thing. So I've got cross stitch to show you. In fact, I have a semi-finished object. This is my Prairie Schooler Santa. Prairie Schooler is, you know, if you're not a cross stitcher, is like a big deal. They do a Santa every year. And this year's had a sheep on it, and it was so, I mean, how could you resist? Now, of course, I just put it in this ring. I got this ring yesterday, and it fits perfectly. I had already decided that I wasn't going to do the wording. It says Peace on Earth. Not that I'm against Peace on Earth. I'm totally not. I'm totally into Peace on Earth. But I'm very new at this, and I don't think that I would necessarily do that good of a job. Of course, you can always take it off. But I thought this would work very well. So I'm going to fix up the back, and I'm going to put some Christmas ribbon, and this will hang in the window or somewhere at Christmas time. Now, one thing about counted cross stitch is you have to be able to count, and apparently this is not a skill that I have yet. So I am not going to show you all the mistakes I made on this or all the differences between this and the actual pattern, because I'm pretty happy with them, and you know, they're not obvious unless you know what the pattern is, and I think he looks good, so I'm pretty happy with him. This is made on linen. I think doing a linen piece as your very first counted cross stitch piece is a mistake, and I should have done them on Ada. I mean, I did a good job, good enough. I'm happy with it. And, but it's made me think I'm gonna skip linen for a while and go to Ada, because there was some frustration trying to figure out where my stitch should go. And some of the things I'm not showing you are that I go over three fibers instead of 2 fibers, and you know. So I had that going. And, we live near Lancaster County. I talked about that a little bit in my last podcast, and Shady Maples, where we get our dog food. And I had to do a dog food run. Of course, I had to do a dog food run, which is, I had to buy and process 70 pounds of meat for the dogs, which will last 3 weeks or more, about 3 weeks. Right after Dennis tore the tip of his finger off, so I had to do it all by myself, which is okay. They're my dogs, and it's not like a big deal. But anyway, I had to go to Shady Maple because that's where we get the liver. They sell beef liver there, which is way cheaper than calf's liver by a lot, and the dogs don't care. But right next door to Shady Maple is a store called Goods. Now this is in Amish country. The Amish, for those of you who are not familiar, is a religious sect. They're plain people, and they do not use machines in this, any kind of machine that augments human power is a no-no. I mean, every new thing that comes along, their council looks at it and decides whether or not they can use it. So for instance, they can't use bicycles because bicycles have mechanics that help enhance the power of your body, but they can use scooters because everything that moves that scooter is it's not mechanics. So of course they don't have electricity. They don't, I was driving through Lancaster County yesterday, and the guy was plowing his field. He had a team of 6 pulling his plow, which I thought was interesting. I tried to get a picture of it real quick when I was driving by, but I'm sure I didn't get it. I didn't even look at my pictures. But anyway, so Lancaster County is Amish country. It's also, they're like a tourist attraction. In fact, I read an article that some of the young people are leaving Lancaster County and moving to the Midwest and stuff because they're tired of being a tourist attraction. I can't blame them. It's like in the top 5 tourist destinations in the United States is Lancaster County. It's a beautiful place, but it's just farm country. But it's within a day, it's a day trip from New York City and from Philadelphia. So there are a lot of people who live around here. But anyway, next to Shady Maple is Goods. Goods home store, Goods. It's called Goods. Anyway, it's a very old-fashioned department store, just like when we were kids, and I'm old. So you can buy everything there. I don't know if you can buy a tractor, but you might be able to. But you can buy birdseed, and you can buy housewares, and there's a fabric department where they still cut fabric, and everything. But of course they also have embroidery. So I went in there because, as you do when you start a new, hobby, and now. So I'm a little concerned because I can't buy yarn, but I can buy cross-stitch. So anyway, I found 2 kits that I bought. Now, I talked about how, what am I going to do with cross-stitch? Because what do I do with cutesy things? And, this is cutesy. But I thought it was pretty. I liked the colors, and it looked like something I would enjoy making. It's got everything in it, including all the yarns and the Aida and everything, and it was $7. And I need to practice. So I bought this to practice, and I bought this one to practice with for $8. Everything included. So I started the teacups. And this is as far. I started in the middle, so I'm working down to this bottom teacup. But I'm pretty happy with my rows. But I can tell you the count on this is totally screwed up. I can't count that far, apparently. But it doesn't matter. I'm just fudging it because fudging it is what we do. And so I've been enjoying that, and I've been picking up, needles here and things there, and one of these days I'm going to have to get really organized. But I also bought these bags, and I don't know if I had them when I talked to you last. These are zippy pouches, clear zippy pouches, so you can see what your project is. And they're like, you know, for papers and things. But counted cross-stitch projects are smaller and flatter than knitting. And so this works great. And I have to start paying closer attention to what podcasts I'm watching, because this was recommended by a podcaster. And they're like $1 a piece on Amazon. So these are my project bags for my counted cross-stitch. I have one other thing that I finished. Last time I showed you those Christmas trees, those small, tiny little Christmas trees, because I wanted to finish something, because I got panicky when the woman was talking about projects that you're working on for 2 years. So I got these Christmas trees, and I finished another Christmas tree. Aren't these cute? So I showed you that one already. This one's my favorite. So the other one I haven't done yet is this exact pattern, but it's in a white tree. So it shows it like and it has a separate pattern for it, I guess, for the colors, but it's the same. It's exactly the same. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but you know, it's nice to finish something. But I finished my Santa. So that's fun. So I'm working on my teacups. And then my daughter came with her significant other, who I think of as my son-in-law. They're not actually married yet, but they were talking like they might sometime. And I was talking about my cross stitch and how my dilemma is that I don't think I'll be putting up very many cross stitches in my house, you know, and so what do I do with the product of my cross stitch? And, you know, that's why I got with the Christmas stuff, because I will use, you know, cross stitched Christmas ornaments and decorations. I think my whole house might be Christmas cross stitched. And Rich said to Christy, didn't you send her that picture of that cross stitch? And Christy said, no, I didn't. So this is, he said, oh, and he sent it to me and said, I would put this on my wall in my office. Now this has the F word in it, so I'm just fair warning, you might want to fast forward if this is offensive to you. But there is a tapestry called the Bayou Tapestry, which is very famous. And I am not prepared, but it's very famous. This is a very small piece of it. Oh yeah, that's gonna work great, Barb. Perfect. Anyway, Bayou, it's B-A-Y-E-U-X. And it's very famous. It's actually not a tapestry, it's an embroidery piece. And it was done apparently very soon after the Norman Conquest. And it depicts William the Conqueror and King Harold and the Battle of Hastings and sort of the political stuff that happened before William came, before Edward the Confessor was the King of England at the time. I think it's Edward the Confessor. And Harold was his brother-in-law or something. And medieval history. My daughter's a medieval historian. So this is why they're interested in this. But this tapestry is actually, this embroidery is 68 meters long, and it tells the story of William the Conqueror building his boats and coming over, and the Battle of Hastings and the death of King Harold, and you know, all this stuff. And it's 1,000 years old, so I'm sure it's quite faded. So anyway, this meme has been going around, and it's done in the style of the Bayou Tapestry, which is in the town of Bayeux in France, by the way, if you want to see it. Apparently it will be going to Great Britain at some point soon. I've got the hiccups now. So avert your eyes if you don't want to see the F word. But this is the tapestry, and it says, "Behold the field in which I grow my F's. Lay thine eyes upon it."
Back from a search.
Shh. Be quiet. Almost my machine. "Lay thine eyes upon it, and thou shalt see that it is barren." So he's pointing to a field, an empty field. In other words, this is the medieval way of telling you I don't give an F. So anyway, Rich said if I had that, I would definitely put it on my wall. I'm like, hey, if somebody would take cross stitch as a gift, I am absolutely happy to cross stitch this for him. So I bought it. And while I was with my daughter, we went to this shop where I did not go into the yarn side, but I did buy some hand-dyed colors for this. Now the colors on this are all brown. I mean, when you read the list of colors, it's light brown, you know, drab brown, this brown, that brown. They're all browns except for the black words. It's every color of brown and a little gray, which is boring. But this tapestry or this embroidery piece is 1,000 years old. It's faded. And besides, there are other colors that are not being shown in that piece. So anyway, these are the colors that I'm going to use. So I have blue and green and gray, and I thought I had a red. Oh, I did have a red. I had a red, but I used that for the border because I started this. So this is, you know, the cayenne is this red, so it's kind of a pretty, you know. So I started it last night. And I got the whole border done. This is the problem with cross stitch. It's not that interesting when you're just starting a new piece. But I got the border done. You couldn't tell, but I had it upside down. And I did it in I did the border in the cayenne. And I might get some more other colors, but I'm gonna do the guy, you know, the people in, you know, green and blue, little gray, maybe some, you know, I'm not opposed to browny things, and the house is probably gonna be brown. But anyway, I'm adding more color than I'm totally changing the colors. I am not using the colors suggested by the pattern. But I'm sure that tapestry had brighter colors when it was made. So I started on this. So I did not, there's a whole lot of the background fabric that's going to show on this piece when it's done. But I just, you know, I told Rich, I hope you don't mind. I'm not going to use linen, like he would care, because I think I would enjoy using Aida more. And so I got 2 different kinds of Aida, and I decided on this lighter one. I got a one that was a little bit darker too, because I just wanted to enjoy the making of it and put all the good vibes in his piece. But I'm very excited somebody wants cross stitch for Christmas. We like to, you know, since we've retired, I have liked to make our Christmas presents, but my kids all live in the South, so I've made them as many knitted things as I think they need. Although my daughter came up and asked me if she could have a shawl because her office is really cold in the winter, and so I gave her my snow melt shawl. Well, I gave her a choice of 3 because of course I have a lot of shawls, and she picked that one. And I said, I'll make you a shawl. Oh, but you know, I'm gonna need it before I see you again. I can mail it, but that's all right. I'll make her a shawl. Oh, that reminds me. I bought a shawl pattern because I loved it and it looked medieval to me. Well, it looked kind of Celtic, but thought she would like it. Let me see if I can find that. Okay, it took me a while. It's called the Duro. I don't know why I keep thinking I can show you this outside, but it's kind of a Celtic look. And it's got big, oh. I'll put a picture right here. It's got big square panels along, you know, that make the triangle at the bottom that look like Celtic designs. I have to do it on the phone because I can't figure out how to take a screenshot with this machine of mine. Anyway, and it's going to be warm. That's going to be a lot of work. And and it calls for, you know, I mean, it's designed for yarn that I don't own, but it's just light fingering, Malabrigo, light fingering. So I would have to find colors, but she's a teal girl. Her favorite color is teal, so I should be able to do something with teal. Anyway, you don't care. So I was delighted to be able to make something for Rich because I like giving presents that I've made. And, you know, they don't need many warm presents. So I'll finish Sammy's sweater, but I won't be giving Allison and Jason any knitwear unless I can knit a summer sweater. I might think about trying to knit a summer sweater for Allison because, you know, she lives in Florida. So anyway, I was very glad to have something I could make Rich for Christmas. So I hope you don't mind the swear word, and I will continue to show you the progress that I made. And I went to this store in Lancaster County as I passed the 6-horse team pulling this plow. It's really, you know, interesting. The Amish are an interesting people. They, Dennis told me that there was a survey a while ago about leisure time, and they sort of classified people, I don't know, by their jobs and all different ways to try to figure out who has the most leisure time. And it turns out that the Amish had the most leisure time of any classification that they made in this study, which I don't know how they did the classifying. So the people who have eschewed every labor-saving device of the last 2 centuries have more leisure time than those of us who have all these labor-saving devices. How is that? How could that be? Well, they live a simple life. They also don't pay Social Security. Did you know that? They have a special exemption, and they do not pay Social Security because their elderly do not need government support because the community takes care of their people. And they have a special exemption. I think that's interesting too. So anyway, I was in Lancaster County in Strasburg at a little store called, I hope I wrote it down, Hodgepodge Cross Stitch and Antiques. I did take a couple pictures inside the store that I'll show you, but I didn't take a picture of the sign outside. And that's where I found the nice Aida that I've started Rich's project with. And so I got 2 kinds of Aida cloth. I needed a big piece because it's a big, you know, picture. And so I have extra Aida cloth. I won't show you my cloth. I mean, it's nothing special. And but I, of course, was walking around looking at things, and I came across this is by a designer, Teresa Kogut. who started out making paintings, and then she translated some of her paintings into needle punch stuff, and then into cross stitch. And she has a podcast. I'm pretty sure I saw a podcast of hers, although I don't know what it is called. But I thought that was so pretty. And they had this, the only reason I even noticed it is they had this done up in the shop, and it looked gorgeous. So I bought exactly the colors that were supposed, this wasn't a kit, it was just a pattern. Exactly the colors that were called for. And just to be nice to me, they also had the fabric pre-cut, the exact same fabric. Now this is linen, so I will not be starting this anytime soon. I'll work on my other stuff. But this is mocha colored linen. So this, I will be making this lovely sheep guy in a scarf at some point. So I bought that. I bought all the things for it, so it's its own kit. And then I found this, and this is a kit already done up called Renaissance Santas. This is the Venice Santa. And it has beads, and it's a kit. I don't know if you can see that. It's got beads. So that was fun. So I have the kit for this, so I can make a Renaissance Santa with beads. They have other ones, Florence and Genoa. This is Venice. So, you know, I've been buying stuff for my cross stitch since I, you know, really can't buy much for my, well, I can buy things, but I don't need that many patterns. I have a ton of patterns. And, but I did order some things. I ordered 101 Christmas minis. So these are just little tiny things. They have them in these little tiny circles, but they're all Christmassy. So this is, you know, how I'm going to make my ornaments. And they have the 12 days of Christmas. There's the partridge in the pear tree, and there's 2, which is the turtle dove. 3 was the French hen, and they have all 12 of them here if I wanted to go in that direction. But they have trees, and they have Santas, and they have, you know, religious scenes, and they have sayings. So I bought this, and it's interesting what's going on around cross stitch in Etsy. Is I was talking about the full coverage things and what I thought I might want to do, and I thought I might want to make Christmas stockings for the granddaughters. That would be a big project, and it would be a multi-year project to do 2 of them, I'm sure. But that didn't stop me from buying pattern. Now this pattern is the cover pattern on the Better Homes and Gardens Cross Stitch and Country Crafts magazine from July, August 1992. So, and it even has the name of the person it, you know, went to. Oh, this one was in Ontario. Someone in Ontario. And so basically they're taking old cross-stitch magazines and taking them apart and selling the pattern, one pattern at a time. Isn't that interesting? But since they're actually, this is the actual magazine, you know, they're not violating the, you know, copyright, because they aren't copying it, you know. They're getting rid of it and they're selling it, but they're selling it piece by piece, which, you know, they're going to make a nice profit on that, I can tell you. But I wanted it. I liked the thing, and I bought another stocking pattern, but I didn't bring it with me, and it's not important because I'm not starting it anytime soon. So anyway, I've got some acquisitions in my cross stitch, but I have a couple of finishes, which is cool. So I didn't finish anything on my knitting, but I have yarn from my spinning, and I have a couple of, and I'm pretty happy with my Santa, I have to say. And I bought this at the Hodgepodge too. I wasn't sure if it was going to fit, but it does. It fits really nicely since I'm not going to put the words on. So I have to do it right. I was just making sure it fit, and it does. And that'll hang. That'll be lovely hanging up. And there's a sheep. And I'm, working on my counting. I did the border on Rich's thing. I counted and counted and counted and counted and counted and counted. I was still off by 1 stitch. It won't matter. I don't know where I was off. I'll find that out when I'm trying to do the insides parts. Probably. I might not even notice then. But it was easy to fudge. It's not going to make a bit of difference in the final product, but it was kind of annoying because I was really trying. So, anyway, the last thing I wanted to talk about was in episode 71, which was 2 episodes ago, I talked about Pom Pom magazine. And I don't think I mentioned this last time. If I did, you might want to just skip this because I don't remember everything I talked about and when. Because I think about things and I don't know if I say them or not, So my problem with Pom Pom was that I felt like in several of the patterns that I really liked, it seemed to me that the sweaters did not fit the models, that the sweaters were the wrong size for the models. Turned out I was right. Penny, member of our group, told me about Stephanie Earle. This is the Sanctuary, can't read that very well, Sanctuary by Earp, Stephanie Earp. And this is the pattern. It's a beautiful t-shirt pattern, but as I said, it looked to me like this sweater did not fit this model. Well, Penny told me that she had, after she watched my podcast, she watched another new podcast that was just out, or a new episode of a podcast that was just out, and it's Stephanie Earle's podcast. And it's called Fast and Loose, and podcast number 8 came out right after my podcast. I mean, so they were right at the same time, which was right after Pom Pom came out, She's the designer of this beautiful sweater, and she said that the model was a size smaller than she had been told to make the sweater. So that sweater did not fit that model. In fact, so I was correct. I thought that was interesting. And I highly recommend Stephanie's podcast. It's called Fast and Loose. In that episode number 8, where she talks about the sweater being, the model being a size smaller, she goes into detail about fit and which numbers are important to a good fit of a sweater. Even a sweater with lots of ease, there are places where that sweater needs to be the correct, like under your arm and, that kind of thing. It's a very interesting episode of this podcast, number 8, and very informative about the difference between something that's too big and something that has a lot of ease but fits correctly. So anyway, I just thought I'd follow up with that. I was right. It looked like these sweaters, this is the other one that I thought, well, actually, I think this one, I didn't, really mention it at the time, but I think this one's too big for her. That's the Rievaulx. I have no idea what that word is, what it means, but that's the name of that sweater. And then this one, which I really liked, the earthen, that just doesn't fit her. Anyway, and the Sanctuary, which I'm probably going to end up making, because this is just but I'll make it in my size. Really interesting pattern, and the way she does the neckline in pattern, and it's very fancy. Look at that neckline. There's like no ribbing on it or anything. It's all built within the pattern. So I recommend her podcast, and number 8 is very interesting about fit. So just putting it out there. And I think that's all I have to talk about. So yeah, no dog sight. Well, no dog sightings today because the way the angle was, even if they ran behind me, you wouldn't have seen it. So I'm sorry about that. They don't seem to be out here. They're inside on their air conditioning vents. And so I'll make more effort next time to get some puppies. Some puppies in the view. So I hope you have lots and lots of time to do the crafting that brings you joy. And thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for subscribing. Dennis Here's About You. And it's very exciting, you know. It is. It's very exciting when people subscribe. So thank you so much for subscribing and liking. I think I've come up on suggestions for people. I have a second YouTube account that's not connected to my podcast or anything. And I got recommended to myself for the first time. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, it's recommending me. So some of you might have had found me through a recommendation on YouTube. So that's very exciting. So the likes help that. The likes and the subscribes and the views. And so thank you so much. And happy crafting. Bye.